Good evening and welcome to City Focus. I'm Marty Olsen, your host, and I'm delighted to welcome back my friend and yours, Hall of Fame coach, Avery Point UCONN, Roger BIDWELL. So, Raj,
Marty,
thank you
for
coming out, sharing an hour with the audience.
Nowhere I'd rather be than right here, right now with you.
Terrific. Let's have some fun.
And let's have some people call in tonight. Well, we want to chat with. We want to see what's on their mind tonight.
Well, I'd enjoy that. I don't generally get a lot of calls. Maybe tonight we'll shake it up a little bit.
It's a cold winter night, right?
Everybody should
home,
be home,
and they got to be watching public television.
I think so.
Okay, that's what I would think. Be on top of my list.
Yeah. Now, although you spent decades as a baseball coach, you are a sports fan.
I'm a sports person, exactly. I try to pay attention to local sports, high school, college, and professional sports. I try to watch and stay in tune with.
Yeah. Well, when I contacted you about coming on tonight, we had this upcoming weekend's games coming up, and are you happy with the results, and are you looking forward to this weekend's conference finals?
You know what, Marty? Two great games this weekend, and I'm a New York Giant fan for my whole life. So I was disappointed they lost, but they got beat by a better team. I mean, it wasn't even close, right? 38-7 by the Eagles. But I was really encouraged by what they did this year. Came a long ways. But it left some great semifinal games in the tournament because the two winners, of course, are going to the Super Bowl in 2 weeks, right, after this. So the Eagles and the 49ers, number one, could be the two best teams in football going at it. And I think it's going to be a tremendous matchup in Philadelphia. Looking forward to that game. And the Cincinnati-Kansas City Chiefs game is another great matchup, which, you know, they're not my team, but I'm going to enjoy watching them. I'm going to watch both those games. I think they're going to be really competitive. They're the four best teams, in my opinion, in the NFL this year, and they are where they should be. They should be in the finals of their conferences.
Yeah. Well, I'll be rooting for, I think, the Bengals in that they've been, I think, to 3 Super Bowls and haven't won yet. So they're the big underdog of them all.
Yes.
I would say.
They played like Super Bowl champs against the Bills the week before. You know, they really overpowered the Bills up in Buffalo. They were impressive there. And Kansas City, of course, is... even though they're not favored in that game by Las Vegas, it's a point. They're getting a point at home, Kansas City. Not that I pay any attention to that stuff. But, you know, Las Vegas says that it's pretty much a pick-em game. And normally the home team, when the teams are even, gets a field goal. They get a 3-point spread. They're given 3 points if they consider it a pick-em game. So I think what they're saying is, for all you people that wager a shekel or two, you go with the Bengals, even though they're giving a point on the road. I think that's what the Las Vegas is telling us.
Yeah, well, and both squads are accustomed to playing in adverse conditions, whether it be cold or other adverse weather conditions.
Yeah, and I'm wondering what the weather is going to be in Kansas City. I don't know. I didn't even check that.
Well, I haven't either. But I mean, they've both played in snow and cold.
Yes.
I mean, it's not uncommon, as opposed to, let's say, San Francisco visiting Philadelphia, which.
That's a good call. It's a good point. That's a good point because they played in Santa Clara, the 49ers, on a nice day, didn't they? Last week, and they're going to be playing in Philadelphia. But I think it's going to be fairly good weather in Philadelphia. I don't think it's going to be a big factor this week.
Well, it should be fun, and then we'll sort it out for the big one in a couple of weeks after that.
Yes, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Now, a gentleman I'd like to get your thoughts on, who's had a modicum of success locally, is the one high school basketball coach, Craig Chop Parker, who recently earned his 500th win as a coach, which is pretty significant in the state of Connecticut.
Isn't it? Number one, you know, we all know Craig Parker, the job he's done, the great teams he's had, some of the great players he's had. You know, we can name a couple: Chris Dunn.
Well, he had Alan Cheney.
Tyson Wheeler. He's had a few, right? So he's been. I mean, when you think of New London High School basketball, he's the name that comes to my mind first. He's been there 30 years, I believe.
If not 30, damn close. I mean,
yeah. And anytime you can win 500 games in any sport, you've proven that, number one, you can survive, and that you know what you're doing. And you've seen it all. Chop's seen it all. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, he and I go back to grammar school. He was actually a Winthrop School guy, and I was a Harbor School guy. But we were same class. We played football together in London. So he and I know each other a long
what
time.
Sports did Craig play in high school?
He played football and he played basketball.
Football, not baseball,
No.
huh? Probably couldn't hit the curveball.
I don't remember him playing baseball even as a younger guy.
Yeah. You know, a lot of people don't like baseball coming at you like that fast. They don't like it. You know, and it's hard to hit. And so they don't, you know, baseball's a little different in that, you know, at a younger age, there's not a lot of action. You might be standing around. Some people can get bored with it, maybe. So I understand that piece of it.
Yeah. I mean, we had some guys who played three sports. Reggie Wheeler comes to mind. Roland Brooks was a good basketball player, good football, and a good baseball player. He's good all around.
Yeah. There's been a lot of good ones out of New London High School. But I saw, talking about the Whalers, Marty, I went up to Mohegan Sun, and I saw them play, and I believe it was against NFA.
It was. I saw you there.
Yes. And you know what? It was a good game, competitive game. The Whalers have a lot of nice athletes. NFA, even though their record's down a little bit, they were very competitive in that game. Very competitive. I enjoyed the game, and I enjoy going to Mohegan Sun and the games they played up there.
They do a good job.
Yeah, and it's got to be great for the local athletes and their family to go up there. One of you liked to play up there when you were in high school?
Sure.
It would have been. I'm jealous.
Listen, when I was a kid, it was a big deal to play at Dillon Stadium in Hartford or Willowbrook Park in New Britain. Those were the two bigger venues.
So who did you play at Dillon?
Played Hartford Buckley and Hartford Public.
They both played there, correct? Back in the day.
Hartford Weaver had their own field at the school.
Now this was the old CDC days.
Yeah.
And remind, who was in the CDC at that time?
You had Hartford Weaver, Hartford Public, Hartford Buckley, New Britain, Enfield.
That's right. Enfield was
in for 2 or 3 years. And then down our way, we had Norwich, Fitch, and New London.
Well, that's a strong conference. That was a good conference, wasn't it?
In those days, the local schools really, St. Bernard's and Waterford would play New London, but we weren't playing East Lyme or Stonington.
That's right. And the ECC at that time, we're talking 68? What we talk? What year?
I got out of school in 72. I started in 68, so late 60s, early 70s.
Okay. So the ECC back then did not, like you say, have Fitch, New London, St. Bernard's, NFA in it at that time. And if I recall, because I went to Ledyard in 73, I graduated. Those teams weren't in there, but E.O. Smith was in the conference. Wyndham was not.
Yep.
Wyndham I always thought was a nice fit for the ECC, and I always wondered why they weren't in the ECC in those days. Now, as we know, they are. But E.O. Smith was in the conference at that time. And let me see if I can remember the teams in the conference. You had Montville and Ledyard. They were rivals. That was big. We had East Lyme.
Yep.
We had
Waterford.
Waterford. We had Stonington. We had Griswold and Plainfield in the QVC. We had E.O. Smith and Killingly.
Yep.
I believe that was it, like 8 teams at that time, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a good conference, but it wasn't the CDC.
No, the Hartford schools board of New Britain.
New Britain, yeah.
One thing with New Britain that folks may have forgotten, I mean, in those days, New Britain had a terrific marching band. And you being a Giant fan, the New Britain's band used to play annually at a Giants game at Yankee Stadium.
Did they? I didn't know that.
At the halftime, when they used to have bands in the halftime.
How did I miss that?
They were top shelf.
Yeah.
I mean, they were really terrific to get invited down to a Giants game.
Well, there you go. Yes. I remember talking about the Giants, Marty, and it might have been 73 when they played in the Yale Bowl for a year or two, didn't they?
Yes.
And was that about the time?
Yeah, when they were refurbishing Yankee Stadium.
Yankee Stadium.
Or they were refurbishing Yankee Stadium or building the new one, whatever it was, but they were transitioning.
I think it was refurbishing, yes. Yeah, back in 73. Exactly. And do you remember they had their preseason training camp back then?
Yep. Yeah.
Where?
Well, the first pro football game my father ever took me to was a preseason game at Yale Bowl with the Giants hosting the Pittsburgh Steelers.
And I believe they trained at Fairfield University. Do you remember that?
That I don't
I
recall.
do remember going down there as a kid and getting Homer Jones's autograph.
Oh, really?
Do you remember that name?
I do. Yeah,
He was a wide
terrific,
receiver.
Terrific run back
And
guy.
I believe it was Fairfield. It might have been a year or two. They went there.
Yeah, he was a speedster.
Yeah, in those days, yeah. Game was a little different then, but, you know, nowadays, of course, it's big money. A lot of money in this game.
That's why they're taking the kicking game out so people don't get hurt.
Yes.
Disappoints me.
I'm gonna-
This is an
you know,
exciting play.
It's funny you bring that up. I'm going to tell you the one rule change which I really agree with what they did. They made the extra point. You have to kick it from like 33 yards now, right?
Yep.
Something like that. So they actually are going to miss it once in a while. Back when they were kicking it from 20 yards, nobody ever missed. I thought that was a great rule change. You have to actually pay attention to the extra point.
Well, the Cowboys missed, what, 3 or 4?
The kicker missed 4 in a row. It's unheard of, right?
It's unreal. It's unreal in a college game. High school game, yeah, but...
I'm going to say it sounds funny to you. It's good for football, missing those extra points. That means it's not just an exercise we're going through. You know, there's a little suspense to it. I like that rule.
Yeah. And what's interesting, too, is I saw just this past week on Facebook, there was a photograph of Fenway Park set up for a Patriot game back in the 60s. And the first regular season football game I ever went to was a Patriot game at Fenway Park. And it was against the Jets, and it was Namath's rookie season. This goes back to the Babe Parilli, Gino Cappelletti days. So the things you remember, the Boston Patriots.
I do remember that. I do remember when they played there. And it was difficult to fit a football field number 1 in Fenway Park, right? They just kind of squeezed it in there a little bit. But we've come a long way since then.
Yeah. Well, as they did with your bowl games you're playing there now, but they have the benches on the same side of the field.
Yeah.
Which is a little unusual.
That is unusual. Yeah. Well, they do the Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium now. You know, they've been doing that for a number of years.
Yeah.
And they wedged that in there also. But they got a little more room at Yankee Stadium maybe to do it.
Yeah. The only time I had an opportunity to see the Giants play at Yankee Stadium was through my younger brother, who was competing for the punt, pass, and kick competition at that time. He was 12 and I was 14. And he one of his competitions, once he left New London, was at a Giants game in Yankee Stadium, which was kind of exciting to
That's awesome.
be in the house that Ruth built there for that. That was just, whoa.
Do they do that anymore? You bring that up.
They do, but Ford was the sponsor at the time. There's some other, I don't know if it's Gatorade or somebody else, and you know, it's. I think it's the same concept.
That's interesting. You bring that up, and I remember other people I know competed in that. I thought it was pretty cool to be able to do that.
Yeah. Well, a few weeks ago, I ran into Jimmy Cavallari from Waterford, and I hadn't seen him and talked to him in years, and I just said hello to him, and he inquired as to about my brother, and apparently he had finished second Eric, when they competed locally the year that my brother won the national championship. So
Your brother won the national championship?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Wow, that's unbelievable. That's terrific.
So he had a trip to St. Louis and a
Yeah.
trip to Miami. The playoff bowl, they didn't play in the Super Bowl, but that
Oh,
was the
yeah.
second place teams in the NFL. So that was the Vikings and the Cowboys.
See, every time I come on the show, I learn something I didn't know.
How about that?
No, I like that.
Yeah, me too.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was a pretty good little athlete in his day.
He had to be.
He played baseball for Gil Vargas. He was a catcher.
Yeah.
I had Gil on a couple of weeks ago. He
Yeah.
was. We had a nice conversation.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we all love Gil. You know, hope you, Gil, if you're listening, call us up, please.
Well, I wanted to move on to a couple of articles that one of our favorite local columnists has penned at the day, Mike DeMauro. And one has got to deal with the name, image, and likeness, which has been basically, it's the law of the land, and in Connecticut, it's actually being expanded by the CIAC to, I guess, high school athletes.
Yeah, I heard that.
And I just wanted to kind of get your take as a longtime college coach, as well as one who's got to deal with the youngsters coming out of high school, and how that may impact sports in general.
It will. It's interesting when the players make more than the coach, which could happen. And I kind of laugh at that, but, you know, some of these people are doing very well. Like Paige Beckers reportedly makes close to $1 million. She's not even playing this year. Now, she's not making more than Gino, but I find that quite amazing. And, you know, other sports, I don't know exactly what they make, but there are teams now where now, you know, you can go to transfer portal, you have to sit out for football, for baseball, for a basketball anymore. You just have to sit out a year. So what they're doing, these people are transferring, and they're going to where they get the most money. And it's like they're all in a bidding war for people. Oh, come and play for Texas A&M. We're guaranteeing you $400,000. And the coach, the team he played on that year goes, oh, wait a minute. I'll see if I can get you more. This is what it's turning into.
Is that healthy? I don't think so.
No, it's not the amateur athletics we grew up and loved. That said, the athlete is in a better position than they ever have been before. Is it in the best interest of college athletics? That's a good question. I think it could lead us down a path where we might regret, but, you know, the NCAA, of course, has been fighting this for so long. You know, it's been in the works and it's been argued and discussed about athletes being paid in the past. I'm going back 30, 40 years.
Sure.
And the NCAA has always fought back. We already do compensate you with a full scholarship and books and housing and everything else.
That does have value.
That has value. So they always countered with that. So that's gone back and forth. So now we've come to the point where the shift in power has changed a little bit. So the student athlete, the athlete now has a little more leverage and power. And a lot of people who have been in power makes them uncomfortable a little bit with it. Where's this headed? Where is it going? Time will tell, but I think it's going to go down the path of where it's going to present more problems than we know.
I would agree with that. I mean, things that we can't maybe even foresee right now. We can't envision what's going to happen.
What I envision is a bunch of mercenaries. We're going to go play for this school, whoever pays the most. It doesn't matter what's on their uniform, it's who's going to pay me the most. And I guess that's what's happened with free agency in professional sports, correct? Remember, it used to be you didn't have the right to move to other teams, right? The team owned you as long as you were in whatever sport it was.
Right.
That wasn't good. That was too much power for the ownership. Now they've given the power to the players, now with free agency and everything, and the shift in power. Look what it's done for salaries in all sports. Well, I mean, all sports is huge salaries now. And so that's better for the athlete, right?
Well, yeah, I'll play devil's advocate. It's been good for men's sports primarily. Women's sports have not necessarily enjoyed that financial bonanza.
That's true.
So there is an element of supply and demand still there. I mean, I think that for those who would argue that women should get equal salaries, I mean, if they're not generating the revenue to support that.
That's how I look at it. It's, you know, that's how we're set up in our country is if you generate the income, then you benefit from it. If the public doesn't buy into it, you generate, or the sponsors don't buy into your team, then how can you expect to get the same salaries as other sports or other teams that do? So I'm all for it. I'm all for women's athletes making what the men's make, but they need to be able to understand that the Mohegan Sun does not draw the revenue or produce the revenue that the New York Knicks do, for instance. And once that catches up, you're going to see the women, I think, making that type of money.
When the revenue stream does. At the moment, it's not even remotely
not even close. So I don't think you can reasonably expect them to make what the men do. Obviously, they don't have it. How can they pay them?
You know, I mean, you don't have the TV revenue, you don't have the sponsorships, you don't have the amount of fans filling the arenas,
correct,
or paying the same ticket prices.
Yes, that's right. That's the way it works. I think in time, and women's sports, geez, they've come so long in my lifetime, and it's getting better and better, and the athletes are getting better and better, and more people are watching and paying to watch it, and that's the key. They pay to watch it, then they're going to benefit. And I think in time it will happen. Maybe not in our lifetime, but it's coming.
Speaking on the women's sports end, the WNBA in particular, just recently, I'd say the top player for the local team, the Connecticut Sun, demanded out, Jonquel Jones. And she's not the first player. I think Tina Charles pulled the same stunt when she was with Connecticut.
To go to New York, right?
Yeah, and others have done the same thing within that league. Poindexter demanded out of Phoenix to go to New York, as I recall. I mean, is this? I don't know if that's a good thing or it's irrelevant or not. That they can just kind of. And the teams where they have been at, they kind of knuckle under and, well, if they want out, we'll accommodate them. And they often don't get equal compensation in return because they've lost their leverage. They know that the other team knows that that's where they're going.
So if you got them under contract, you have the player under contract like Jones, and she demands a trade, and you say, we're not going to do it. So now what happens? The player just said, well, I'm just not going to play for you. Is that what it's going to be? If you're under contract, I feel that you should finish your contract with that team. Now you can say, well, I don't like it here. I can go make more money, whatever. Well, if I'm the owner of the team, I'm going to do what's best interest for our franchise and our team, not for the individual person. As long as you're under contract, that you're obligated to play for our team. And that's how I look at it. I think what's going on now, where I think the franchises are just giving in to the players in the WNBA, I don't think it's good for the league. I don't think it's good for the sport. That said, they do it in the NBA with the star players. There's been some star players and examples of that. James Harden, I went out of Houston at the time, and they accommodate him. I don't understand that piece of it. I think you are obligated to fulfill your contract.
I don't know. The NBA, which I really haven't followed in decades. I mean, I was at one point in time was a huge Boston Celtics fan, going back to the early '60s, and Bill Russell and the dynasty of the Celtics, and Havlicek and Sam Jones, and through the Cowens era in the '70s, and through Larry Bird and all. But the style of play in the NBA, I don't find appealing. With basically dunks and threes. I don't.
That's not appealing to you.
No, it's not.
For some people, it is. It seems like the old timers like us, we enjoy the old game of more of a team game, move without the ball, pick and roll, give and go. 'Cause that's what we're talking about. We like that.
That's right.
And that's why people our age are more attracted to the women's game, because they do not dunk and they play more of the game that we grew up with.
Below the rim.
So as you noticed, yeah. So you notice that. But the younger people coming up in the game, they get more excitement out of somebody dunking than maybe making a nice pass. Or a nice 15-foot jump shot from John Havlicek from the elbow.
Yeah.
See, that is so changed. But the NBA wants this because it's about eyeballs watching the game and TV ratings and sponsorship, and this is what people want to see. So that's why they changed the rules to accommodate scoring, now with the three-point arc for more scoring, and taking out the physicality of the NBA back in the 80s and 90s when they beat the crap out of each other.
Oh, yeah.
You remember that with the
Pat
Knicks?
Riley had the Knicks and the Bulls. They were slugfests.
But it was a 88 to 82 game, and they beat the crap out of each other. And you could have taken a swing at somebody and knocked them out, but it's just a regular personal foul, and you're okay to continue the game.
No harm, no foul.
That's right. So that's what they want in the NBA. They want that. They're getting it. The scoring. They want the scoring. They want the fast pace. I won't be surprised they put in a 4-point shot next, Marty. If you make it from 40 feet, and then half court, we're going to give you 5.
Yeah. Well, but the kids emulate the pros at all levels. So now, when you go to a high school game, I mean, you see the youngsters are launching up threes, and it's part of the game.
Part of the game. I'm not saying the 3-point shot is not a good thing. It's just that it's evolved into too big of a part of the game for my taste. That's all. For some people's taste, maybe not. But when the whole game, like you say, is dunking 3 points, I find that a little boring at times, because you go watch a game and they're running a fast break. Instead of taking the layup, they kick it out to a guy in the corner for a 3. There's something wrong with that, I think.
Yeah, when you got the shot right in front of you.
Yeah, doesn't make a lot of sense. But I got to say, there's such good shooters in the NBA now. I find it amazing how good everybody shoots now. Everybody shoots the threes, or you're not playing in the NBA.
Even the big guys shoot threes.
Yeah, it's become extinct of the big centers. What would happen to Bill Russell and Wilt Chamberlain in today's game? I mean, I'm sure they could play in the league for sure, but you know what? They're becoming irrelevant, those guys, in the post play and the Kevin McHale.
Yeah,
low post, right?
Yeah. Well, Russell and Chamberlain were both low post guys, and they both of them couldn't shoot free throws. I mean, that's 15 feet.
That's right.
Never mind 3-pointers.
Nate Thurman was another big guy, right?
Yeah.
You can name a number of them in the NBA now. Who those guys? The game has changed so much. Those guys aren't as valuable as they used to be. They used to be the most valuable guys in the league. Now, who are the most valuable guys? Are the guys that can score. The wing shooters, the Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant type player, who can score and shoot threes.
Sure.
Got to shoot the ball. The defensive abilities isn't as valued as much as can you score. So a guy who's a great athlete like the player at UConn, Jackson, who's an NBA athlete who can't shoot, is going to have a heck of a time playing in today's NBA game. And he's a tremendous athlete.
Yeah, well, I think that to a degree is what held back our local talent, Mr. Dunn. I mean, he was a terrific athlete. He could jump out of the building, but he was not a real strong outside shooter.
And Marty, how many years has that been now since he was drafted fourth from Providence? 10 years?
At least.
I might lose track of years, maybe 10 years. But, in today's draft, he would never be picked fourth, because the guys up there got to shoot. Back then, even in that short 10 years since he's been out of college, the value of shooting has even increased that much more, because they're not taking guys that high in the draft who aren't going to be shooters or scorers.
Yeah. Well, that's and I think makes for an interesting segue also into another article that Mr. DeMore wrote just recently, and it deals with baseball. His article dealt with baseball, but I think I could have impacted any sport, and that has to do with recruiting. I don't know if you happen to see that piece or not,
Yeah.
but they had a forum in Waterford, I believe, and Travis Bousselet participated from Mitchell, and a gentleman named Beanie, who I don't know, but he was
Lucas Beanie. Yeah.
I guess with Babe Ruth, and I mean, and how the kids should be navigating their youth and where they should play, whether they should be playing Legion or high school or AAU or travel teams, and try to get where they want to go and play baseball. And not every kid's going to play baseball D1. And where do they kind of sift through and not shortchange themselves in baseball, but also in life?
Well, number one, Lucas Beanie and Waterford Babe Ruth did a great service. Number one, having a college coach as Travis, very successful one, who can come and speak to him about these issues about them, because most parents have no idea how it works, and it's very valuable for somebody like that to come and to speak to them. How would you like to have that when you're that age? We had no idea. You know, you just walked in blindly into it. You know, what are you getting into? You didn't know. So, but it's much more complicated now today because there's so many more options for the high school players coming out, where to go play. There's more programs. There's more good programs. There's more people recruiting. It's more complicated. There's more options in high school. There's more options in summer ball or AAU ball. There's so many more options to navigate yourself through. So it's more complicated. When I was growing up, and it was simple. I grew up in Gales Ferry, so I went to Ledyard High School, and I played Legion ball in the summer. You know, there weren't any other options, right? But it's not that simple anymore. So, you know, there's a lot of
Then there was the Morgan
options.
League or the Norwich League. I don't remember what it was called.
Norwich City League. Norwich City League.
For the guys post high school or post college that weren't good enough for the next level.
That's right. That's where you would play. So, you know, now you have like the Mystic Schooners, who are now, are they the Norwich Schooners?
Well, they're playing up at Dodge Stadium, aren't they? Aren't there two teams in two different
One's in
leagues?
the Futures League. Okay, there's the Futures League team, and then you have the New England Collegiate College League, which was the Mystic Schooners that played at Fitch.
Yes.
They're now playing at Dodd. So they're now called, I'm not sure if they're still called, they can't call them the Mystic Schooners if they're playing in Norwich, can we? So I should know this. And then you have the Futures League, which is also a collegiate amateur league also. So they're both playing at Dodd now. Yeah.
But that's, you know, I don't know if that's a fast track for young men who are interested in professional ball, or is the Cape League still the cream of the crop?
Well, the Cape League is the cream of the crop. These leagues are good, and for good players who play in college, who are looking to improve their skills in the summer. Is it a springboard to professional baseball? Well, the Cape Cod has always been the number one. They attracted the most successful players, the most talented players in college who've played in the Cape League for years. But this is the same model as the Cape, just at a lower level of talent.
Yeah. Now, with the changing dynamics of coming into the next level from teens into whether it be basketball, football, baseball. I mean, you were recruiting and trying to get ball players at Avery Point all this time. Now you weren't going to get Lee Elsey, for instance, and he ended up at Clemson. But how do you get your players? I mean, these guys, I'm sure at some point had dreams of wearing a big league uniform, and at some point they also have got to come to the realization that they're not, but they still like to play ball. And where do you play?
Interesting question, Marty. How to find my niche. Took a while. And then I had to find out how to attract players that didn't belong at our level, at a higher level. And it took a while, and it took a lot of work. And then it took, after getting somebody with talent, make them better. So there's your formula. But it's not that simple. So, where do you get guys that ended up playing? We had about 36 guys when I coached there played professional baseball. And a few guys who made it to the big leagues who they are. But how do you get that type of player? You can't just take a normal person and make them into a big leaguer. They have to have talent to come in. So how do you get those guys to come to a non-scholarship program, small school, with a high academic standards, like UCONN? You have to get into UCONN to go to Avery Point, since it's a regional campus of the university. How do you find these people? Well, one, you got to work real hard. Two, you have to help them get to the next level, because that's why they're coming there. And once you break through and help a few guys go to the next level, word of mouth is your best advertising. That took a while. But then when you found some guys that you could help to get better, they tell somebody else in their high school. Pretty soon they start to listen to you, and they figure out, well, maybe I'll spend a year there or two, and maybe they can help me play at UCONN, because we were able to develop guys who could play at stores, and that was a big deal. And like you say, I wasn't going to get Lee Elsey, because Lee Elsey, I'm not going to go and say, Lee, you should go to Avery Point instead of Clemson. He'd probably laugh. You know what I said to Lee Elsey? I'd say, Lee, you should go to Clemson. You got a great opportunity, because that's the reason you go to Avery Point, is because you didn't get that opportunity, but maybe we can help you get that opportunity, because we'll get you better. And that's how I would do it. But I would never hold anybody back if they had a better opportunity, and try to tell them that, you shouldn't take a better opportunity, because that's what we're trying to do for you. So not everybody gets that opportunity to go to Clemson, right? But there's a lot of good players out there that just needed an opportunity, who are late bloomers, physically, emotionally, or whatever. That was my job, to find who they were. Late bloomers, like a John McDonald, a Rajay Davis. These guys, they were late bloomers, but if you see something, they're examples. There are plenty of other examples, but...
Oh, two local guys that had extended major league careers.
That's right.
They're still in the game.
They're there. But you know what?
And Pete Walker,
Pete Walker. And Marty, there were so many guys that went on the scholarships that nobody gave scholarships out of high school, but they needed opportunity. They had talent, but they needed to go where they could get better. And then once you got that started, then other players liked that idea. And that's where then they'd start to listen and say, hey, maybe that's a good place for me for a year or two.
Yeah. Well, one thing that was in the article that I thought was important was that the panelists in this forum stressed the need for academics, and you might call it Plan B, that you're not going to be Jim Rice.
That was Travis speaking. Travis Boseley, yes.
And that you've got to have a plan for what you're going to do.
Well,
when you become an adult.
Well, Travis he played at Avery Point. I don't know if you knew this or not, but he was a very strong student at Avery Point. And he's not just talking it, he walked it. He was a good student and believed in it. So, that's part of why he's so successful. He's a very serious baseball person, but he also believes in helping the student prepare himself for when they do graduate.
Yeah, I've had him on the show a couple of times. He's a terrific guest. He's really somebody I enjoy having a conversation about baseball, but life.
Yeah. Yes, he was. Yeah, I hated having him on the team, though. So I hate it when the players are smarter than the coach. The questions get too difficult.
He wasn't questioning about calculus, was he?
If he did, he would have lost me.
Me too.
Yeah.
Oh boy. Well, you had Mike McLaughlin working for you over there too, didn't he? Wasn't he kind of a tutor, make sure the students...
He coordinated our academic support for athletics.
So that the players stayed on the straight and narrow. And
correct. And that was always a part of the program. Mike was invaluable, what he did, and he enjoyed doing it, and he had a good way about him. And again, finding people in a small program that can support athletes, and that's what it's about. And he helps support. We put together the program for academic support, and a guy like him's hard to find. But it's all about, like you say, it's not just about athletics, and this is what Travis was talking about when he got together with the Waterford Babe Ruth parents and the players, is that it isn't just about athletics. And you know, when you come in as a freshman, you're all about athletics. You're a good high school player. It's all about athletics. You know what? 4 or 5 years later when you're leaving, it isn't all about athletics anymore. You've matured. You've realized that, you know, maybe there's something more next stage of my life once I'm done playing. And if you're lucky, and you're the exception, you have 4 years of college playing time, because most high school players do not get that.
Yeah. And I don't think that a lot of these youngsters recognize that. And this was highlighted, I think, also. Speaking of Mike McLaughlin.
I'm glad to hear he's still alive, Mike.
Mike, you're on the air. Except that we can't hear you. You should call up the station and get on the air. Give me the number. 860-440-3154. All right, you call that. We're here waiting for you.
I'll be calling.
All right.
That's very interesting. Was he watching the show, or he just called you? I'm wondering why he called now. Did he see us on?
Well, I don't know if he gets the show or not.
I don't think it sounds like he isn't. He just called you by coincidence, and we just were talking about him. We got to ask him that.
Well, we can. Drew, are you ready for him on the phone? I'm not sure.
Yeah, we'll see.
We'll get Mike on.
He might not know how to use a cell phone.
Now, there's a Mr. New London guy there, Mike McLaughlin.
I'll tell you, you're exactly right. He is. He's the type of people who make New London great.
Okay, here we go. I think we're good here. Mike, you with us?
You bet, Marty. Why would I not be with two of the best people I ever met, Roger BIDWELL and Marty Olsen?
Hey.
Welcome aboard.
Hi, Michael.
Hey, you know what I don't understand, Roger? Is why Marty is not the new football coach in the London High School.
Well, first of all, does he want the job?
Oh, he always would take it because he's a Whaler, green and gold.
Well, I agree with that. But I think Marty's very good with what he's doing right now. Marty, you want that job?
We have some fun here anyway. But it's kind of fun, like, when you're doing the games, I like talking sports with you, and you like talking politics with me.
Isn't that interesting? Mike, how are you, man? I haven't spoke to you in a long time.
No, Roger, and I've been talking to Scotty. It was his birthday now. But the big thing I want to let everybody know is Marty has had two of the biggest winners who knew how to build a program correctly, who did it from where they live. Roger BIDWELL, who built a program over at Avery Point where I could remember going to College World Series and going to every different place you could think of.
Millington, Tennessee, Mike, right?
Yeah.
Millington, 1999 you went with us.
Yeah, and I remember the kids who, when they first came, we had one that couldn't read, and now he's a police lieutenant after going to the Marine Corps out in San Diego. He just called me, Jack Mahoney, who I'm so proud of. And the kids that went on to Brandeis and all of the other different kids that we had. It was just as much fun to watch them play the sport as it were to see them become great students. And you made all that happen. I've never seen any place or heard of a program like that where you had such success.
So, Mike, you're taking credit for teaching Jack how to read? Is that what you're telling me?
Yes.
Okay, that's great.
Well, he's honest.
But I'll tell you what, he has moved out. And when he went to Catholic University, he did so great not 2 years late, you know what I mean?
Right.
which is a very good school.
He was almost a Navy SEAL too, Mike.
Yes, and
very
he's
close.
From San Diego.
Yeah.
That he's and it's so good. I mean, you go through all the different players, but what you did for that program, okay, and all these kids, they talk about it, and if we ever had another dinner, they'd all come back just to say, thank you, Mr. Bidwell, because people don't understand where those kids were when you found them and where those kids left. It was amazing, amazing transition.
Well, Mike, I think the last time we had the reunion at Tony D's for the 25th, what team was that, 2010?
Yes.
Is it the 2010 team? And we had it at Tony D's, right?
Yep. Yes, we did.
It wasn't too long ago. And we got together. And
it was amazing what they all are doing now.
They're all very successful. But, that's our reward, Mike, for seeing these guys mature into productive people in society. They're all leaders now. And, that's the power of athletics, in my opinion, is our leaders come from being athletes.
And what I tried to express, and you understood, but very few people do, athletics are important to any school, small school, college, high school, because when you win 52 games, and when you go, you are getting free publicity from newspaper. You can't buy those ads.
Well, that's the truth. And, that's why Marty was talking about earlier. I don't know if you were watching at the time. He brought up your name. Were you watching this on TV, or did you just call by accident?
I called because I told Marty when he told me that I was going to call you, and on my part of the cable, it's not working.
Well, you got to pay your cable bill, Mike.
I did. I paid it the other day. Otherwise, I wouldn't get to see Marty.
Okay, thank God. Okay, all right.
But it is an interesting thing, and and when I think of you, when I think of Avery Point, I think of Marty with New London, and I just hope that never do they change the high school name from New London High School to the Integrated Science Technology Magnet. It'll always be, to the people who live in New London High School.
Well, has there been talk of changing it?
Well, if you go up the thing, up by the school where they have it all written, one of the smallest things says New London.
They've changed the name to incorporate the magnet program.
Magnet. So is New London High School Magnet School? Is that what they call it?
Who knows what they call it? A lot of people don't like it very much, call it a lot of things, but...
they've saved the colors, they call them the Whalers, but...
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Well, Mike, one sure thing is change. Whether we like it or not, there's always going to be change. But you know what? The London Whalers, for me, is an iconic brand in this area, which should never go away.
Well,
never.
To the people, it will never go away.
Yeah.
Okay? And the green and the gold will never go away. And, the amazing thing that we have is, besides you who are extremely successful, that people don't realize how skilled and talented a leader you were. Because I used to hear stories about you, and when I went to work for you, it was only 1/10 of what the truth was, because the time you spent with those kids. But when you talk about New London, the three New Londoners that really made that program were Chop Parker in basketball, Jimmy Bunacore, with football, with all the state championships, and Jack Cochran, who, if he was coaching there now, they would still be green, gold, whatever it is, and they'd be beating everybody else.
You forgot one, and that's Gil Vargas. You forgot Gil Vargas.
Oh, but Gil is not a New Londoner, but he became a New Londoner.
You mean a native New London person.
Yes.
Okay. So Gil's an outsider.
Is as good a coach that ever existed.
Okay, I understand.
He coached with you. I mean, up there, and he was, fabulous third base coach.
No, I get it. I misunderstood.
Yeah.
You're right.
No,
Gil
but
Gill's
that's
from
the
Southeastern. Yeah.
Michael, thank you so
Marty,
much.
I'm going to get off the phone because somebody else probably wants to call. And
Yep.
say
They're
that I'm
lining up
completely
to
wrong.
call, Mike.
Thanks a
Get on.
bunch.
Thank you, Mike.
But I will, and Roger,
Yep.
I hope I don't see you where you work.
Not too soon, though.
Okay. Thank you.
Good night, Mike.
Right now.
Yeah. I'll tell you, one guy I'd be remiss if I didn't recognize tonight, speaking of New London, is Tom Major, who's just retired as the recreation director for the city.
Yes.
And I mean, there's a New London guy, certainly did a terrific job running the rec department. And I played ball with him at New London concurrently, and he was arguably one of the all-time greats ball players.
No argument. No argument. He gave everything back to the cities in London.
Yeah. And as rec director, I mean, he was the first guy in, last out. I mean, he'd come in, open the gates, and he'd be back at the end of the night clocking up.
That's
right.
right.
Turn the lights off. I mean,
That's right.
He was there all the time.
Mm-hmm. No, he's a legendary guy. When you think about the history of New London and athletics, Tommy's right at the top.
So I would have been remiss if I didn't mention him along with Chop, and so two guys that I grew up with. And good men, good local guys who've done terrific work.
Terrific work. No question about that.
Well, I'll tell you, there's so many more topics I'd like to go over with you, but we're running out of time.
I have to
here.
come back another time.
We're going to have to do it.
So when I come back, Marty, you mark right there where we're going to pick up.
And we'll do that.
You pick up, and then we can talk about the football games this weekend. Okay?
We'll have you back soon.
We got a lot.
Back in a few weeks.
We got to catch up on a lot of stuff. We just tip of the iceberg today.
Okay.
Tip of the iceberg. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Always a pleasure.
Our pleasure.
From Washington City Focus, good night.